Chapter 5, A Father Forgiven. The snow was just beginning to fall when I stepped into a small coffee shop near South Shore. The windows fogged with warmth, the smell of roasted beans and cinnamon filled the air, and the low hum of conversation wrapped around me like comfort. I'd come to meet Marcus, a man whose testimony the pastor of a nearby church said I needed to hear, a story about forgiveness, not the easy kind, but the kind that costs you your pride, your pain, and your past. Marcus sat in the corner, hands around a chipped mug, eyes distant but kind. When I introduced myself, he said, "I've done a lot of talking in my life, brother, but this one's hard." He took a breath, looked out the window, and began. "I wasn't always this calm," he said with a quiet laugh. "I used to be the kind of man who could win every argument but lose everyone I loved." He told me how years of anger and alcohol had torn his family apart. His wife left, taking their 2 kids with her. For years, he carried bitterness like armor, convinced that forgiveness meant weakness. "I told myself I didn't need nobody," he said, "but truth was, I needed grace more than I could admit." He said the turning point came one night when he found himself alone in his apartment, surrounded by silence. "I turned on the radio just to drown my thoughts, and this preacher came on reading Ephesians chapter 4 verse 32. And be ye kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God for Christ's sake hath forgiven you." Marcus said that verse hit him harder than any sermon he'd ever heard. "I'd been waiting for everybody to say sorry to me," he said, "but I never realized I was the one holding the chain." He put his face in his hands and wept that night, the kind of tears that wash years of guilt away. The next morning, he called his ex-wife and asked to see his kids. "It wasn't perfect," he said, smiling faintly, "but it was a start." He began attending church again, found a men's group, and started working at a local outreach center. "Now," he said, "I tell fathers like me that forgiveness ain't forgetting, it's letting God do the remembering so you can live again." I asked him what forgiveness feels like now. He looked down at his hands, then back at me and said, "It feels like breathing for the first time." As I left the shop, snowflakes drifted through the streetlight glow, landing softly on the sidewalk, white, pure, and new. I thought about how God restores what we think is beyond repair. How He rebuilds hearts the same way He rebuilds families, one humble prayer at a time. "And be ye kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God for Christ's sake hath forgiven you." Ephesians chapter 4 verse 32.